Hey guys, Rocky here. Just wanted to give you an update on some stuff I've been doing here, working with the guitars, moving right along. I decided to build a neck and started to do the neck, and I got to the point where I started thinking about putting a truss rod in it, and I thought, well, maybe I should probably do that on a practice neck first. My first neck that I made is actually, I'm considering this a practice neck. Could be maybe a usable neck at some point, but it's one that I'm using right now for practice purposes. Trial run. I thought since I don't have a truss rod for it, I would try to make a truss rod, and I think it's pretty simple to make one actually. I had some material here that I could work with, some steel rod, and the steel rod is long enough that I was able to cut a piece out to what I think is the right length for a truss rod. And of course it was solid rod, there was no threads on it. I had to thread this end, so what I did was I took my kit for tap and die set for doing threading and stuff, and I threaded this off. I found a nut that I thought would fit on here, and I measured the thread of that nut with one of the dies in the kit and found out what the proper size was, and then I translated that size over and picked up the tap. Actually, the tap I used to go inside of the nut to get the thread, and then I used that size to get the proper die, because I think the die is the one that the screws on the outside that makes the thread on the rod. So with the proper die, I was able to actually thread this. The problem was there were some pieces missing off the die handle and where the die sets in, and I just kind of ignored it, figured I could get away without it. But what happened by the time I actually put these threads on and tried to put the nut on afterwards, the nut threaded on, but the nut was very loose. I could tell that this wouldn't work. So I have to redo this part. I may have to cut another piece out. Actually, this is a little longer than it needs to be, so I probably end up cutting this end off and starting again with this. But what I got to do first, I got to repair the die handle so that it will work properly. There's a set of three little metal tabs inside the die on the bottom section after on the die handle. When you put the die in, there's a little cap that goes over, and the way the cap goes on is three threaded bolts that hold it on, but the cap will turn, and when it does, it pushes three little fingers in, and those three little fingers come in against the metal on three sides to hold it stationary, so that when you're doing the threading, you don't get a lot of wobble and end up with a loose thread. And that's what happened, was I didn't have that in place, so I ended up with a loose thread. So this is really no good. This might be okay in terms of the proper size for the truss rod, but the threads won't do. I have to redo that. Now I will try to make repairs to the handle so that I can actually do a proper threading and see if that works. But if I do happen to get a new truss rod in the mail, I've got two ordered. If I happen to get one in the mail prior to getting this one fixed up, then I will go ahead and use the new one if I can. But what I did was I took a long drill I had, and I started a hole through here first in about approximately what I thought would be the right angle. And then I went ahead on the back side here, and I used narrow stone on my handheld angle grinder, and cut the notch out. First I do a center line to make sure I'd be center. You can still see a little bit of the center line there. I still may have to cut back a little further here on this end. I'm not sure yet. Actually, not that end. No, no, I think that's about right. That's about right. So I had to make sure it's wide enough so that I could get this. So I could get this rod to sit down in there, and it does. It sets down in there now pretty good. If I were to take it and push it through here now, the threaded end here would actually go this way if it were working properly, which it's not. If I push it in there right now, the threaded end comes out here, so essentially what would happen is I'd have to make this hole here a little bigger, get the nut on the end of this and the washer in there, and this would actually be, kind of hidden down in this hole a little bit. All you would see would be basically just a nut sticking up there a little bit where you could tighten it down. And then of course this would be cut to proper length, at which point it would be laying down inside here. Now right now there's quite a bit of pressure on that already, putting a bow on that, which should actually tilt the neck back a little bit, because the pressure's down this way on it. You look at that, you can see there's a bow on it already. That pressure should actually tilt this neck back in this direction. But when I put the strings on, that should pull it back the other way. Now as I tighten this nut, that's going to put more of a bow in the rod, so that'll counteract the pressure of the strings and straighten the neck up again, so I can actually get the neck to where it needs to be, making the adjustments using the truss rod, right? So the idea is to get this down into place, get it threaded properly, get a nut on it, get it to the right length, get this down into place, put a, once it's down into place, put a piece of wood in over top of it, piece of piece probably mahogany. I got some mahogany here, which is darker wood, which I want to put in here just to make this look nice. So it has a skunk stripe on it. So once I get the wood down in there and get it all glued in and everything into place, then we should be good to go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little hole in here so that this can be extended into the hole a little bit. So I'll push it down, push it in the hole, so that'll hold it into place. I'll also cut this out because I have to have a metal tab welded on here, so that when it's down in the hole, metal tab on here, this is going to prevent the rod from turning when I turn the nut up on the other end here to make adjustments. That's what we need to make that stay stationary. But now it comes down to being able to get the proper thread on the end of it, getting a nut that fits and a washer in there, and then being able to get this all in place and get the piece of wood on it, and get the piece of wood down in there and glued into place. And then we'll have some pressure on that neck, which should either back bow it or straighten it out, one or the other. If it straightens it out perfectly, that's good. If it puts a back bow on it, like I said, the string should counteract a little bit. I'm hoping it won't put a back bow. I'm hoping that it'll come up and it'll be, straight. And if it's not completely straight, it's bowed a little bit forward towards the fretboard, then I'm hoping that I'll be able to, of course, make adjustment on the truss rod one way or the other to straighten it out a little bit. And then, of course, from there I'll go ahead, once I know that works, I'll go ahead and put the proper fretboard on it and set that up and do the radiusing with my 12 degree radius, or 12-inch radius block. They call it 12-inch radius block. The way that works, I believe, is that if I were to have a center point and I would have a radius line, let me see, or I think a radius is from the center to the circle, the center out to the outside side of the circle. I think that's the radius. From one side to the other, I think it's the diameter. If I have that right, I'm not sure. But if I had a circle, and that circle were a 12-inch radius, and I were to cut a piece of the wire off, then I have a 12-inch radius wire. So if I were to take that complete circle and cut that into the right lengths, then I have my 12-inch radius fret wire. So I did buy a package pre-cut 12-inch radius wire, and I have that inside, and 21 frets, I think, 21 or 22, I think 21 frets. And it's just a matter of getting a fingerboard on, getting it radius properly with the block. The block now has a 12-inch radius, which is exactly the same radius you would have if you had that circle and cut a piece out. The block's about this wide, so I put a piece of sandpaper on the block, and it's at a 12-inch radius. Then I take that sandpaper and I run over the fingerboard until I have the fingerboard, perfectly radiused at the 12-inch radius for the fret wires. And then, of course, cut the slots at the right distance apart for the fret wire to set down in. Now, I think that I'll do the radiusing on the fretboard first and then go ahead and cut the notches, because I have to make sure, like if I were to cut the notches before doing the radiusing, the notches would be deep enough for the fret wire to fit in. But then if I do the radiusing, it's going to drop the depth on each edge. So I want to make sure that it's deep enough on the edges that it doesn't come up. If it's a little too deep in the middle, that's okay, because it's going to press down in, and if there's a little space but there, it's all right. But I don't want any spaces on the outside edges. If I were to cut everything, see how that works. If I were to cut the radiusing down, or let me see, trying to think now. I had it figured out in my head there a few minutes ago, but I forget now. Essentially, I think what I have to do is I have to radius the fretboard first, so that the depth, when I cut to the proper depth for the frets to fit in, I don't have any gaps at the end of the frets where it meets the outer edge of the fretboard. If I do it the other way, I think I could potentially end up with having gaps on the edges, and we don't want to be seeing any gaps. We want to make sure that the frets are pushed down in tight. Now, if there's a space underneath the fret that's out of sight, that's okay, because the fret's pushed down in, it's got some glue in there, it's going to stay in. And, once it's in place and looking good, go ahead and make sure that everything is level the way it's supposed to be. There's no high frets, and make sure everything is polished and crowned if it needs to be. I don't know if the frets are prepared when they come right off the fret wire or not. They may be, and maybe the only time that I have to dress them is if I have to do some leveling. If I find some of them are a little high and I have to level, then the ones that get dressed, ones that get leveled have to be redressed and recrowned and all that. So you know, that's where you could run into a little more work. But I'm hoping that's going to come up pretty good. I got 2 sets of fret wires. I got a set of jumbos and a set of regular. And I think I'm going to go ahead, when I do this up, I'm going to put the regular ones on this one. And we're going to put the jumbo ones on the neck that I'm going to use for the SG that I'm building. And I have another guitar in mind that I want to build, and I think it's going to be another Gibson style. And the one I want to try to replicate is one that I see. I watch some AC/DC videos, and I see the lead guitar player has a one that's black, and it has the white binding on the front side, and has a white binding on the back side. It's an older Les Paul of some sort, and I don't know if it's a custom or what it is, but it also has a Bigsby, like a Bigsby style tremolo on it too. So what I want to do is I want to try to copy that as close as I can. I'm not going to make it exactly like that, because that's got 3 humbuckers. It's got you know, your bridge and your neck, and then there's a humbucker in the middle. So you got 3 humbuckers, and they're all pretty close together. Not a big fan of that, and I'm not sure how to wire that up. But what I would do is put probably 2 sets of humbuckers in it, like what he has. And I think they're the kind of humbuckers like where you don't have the covers over them, chrome covers over them. You see the 2 pickups side by side, wired in series or parallel, whatever they're in. And I think that there's one that's actually zebra, black and white. Maybe they're both zebras, I'm not sure. I might even do both zebras because of the fact the way the guitar is made. It might look good for the simple fact it's got the white binding on it, front and back both, and then the zebra picks set of humbuckers in front on the bridge and on the neck. And then the Bixby style, Bixby style, whatever it's called, tremolo, is like a heavy duty looking tremolo that attaches to the body. I'm doing that more for the looks, not that I'm a tremolo kind of a guy, but because of the way that looks. Then there's a specific type of inlays on that fretboard too. There's some thicker ones at the end, and they get narrower as they move towards the bridge or towards the body of the guitar, and then they get a little thicker again, I think. I remember seeing that style of guitar somewhere and seeing that it was like a custom or a special or something. So I'll see if I can actually find a neck, you know, maybe $60, $70 neck online that is that style with that type of fretboard and the type of inlays and stuff on it. And if I can't find one like that, and I am good enough, I've made a neck that works well, maybe I'll just go ahead and make another neck like that, and try to see if I can make inlays. I think I know how I can make inlays now. I'm pretty sure I know how to do that, and I'm pretty sure with the router I can actually cut the inlays into the fretboard, and I have some substance here I can use to make the actual inlays themselves. It's pure white. Is the only problem, is I have to find out a way to introduce some color to it to give it a pearl look. And if I can do that, then I'll make my own inlays as close as possible as I can, you know, to what I'm seeing. I could even do inlay for the logo, the headstock logo, if I wanted to, especially the ones that you see on some of the older style custom Gibsons, where they have the little triangular shaped, you know, it's the pattern that you see on some of the older ones. Is pretty cool. I could probably even do that if I can get my material to come up with the right colors and everything, and come up with a mold to make them. I think I can do all that. It's pretty involved, but you know, if you do something like that, then you end up making something that you would be pretty proud of. So I absolutely would like to do that. That would be a guitar that's probably going to take me a little longer than what most would if I go to that length to do that much work to it. But you know, hey, it might be quite rewarding as well, right? So that's the plan. But before I get to that guitar, I've got to finish up some of these other ones. I'm still waiting for a neck to show up for the Strat that I've got on the go in there. The body's pretty much done. It just needs to have some, you know, finish sanding on it, but it's shaped and everything is there already. Got all the components for it. The only thing I don't have is the neck. And I've got a neck started for the SG. It needs to be finished, and one of the reasons I stepped off to do the truss rod in this one is because I can't really do much more in the other one until I have a truss rod. Once I have a truss rod and have it installed, I can go ahead and refinish, or completely hand finish and you know, finish sanding everything the way it needs to be to look good and to function properly, which right now I can't. I could start making a fingerboard for it, fretboard for it, but you know, I don't want to glue a fretboard onto it until I've got a truss rod in it and I know that it's going to work okay. Then I can go ahead and put the fretboard on and start doing the work on that. So I've got lots to do still, and it looks like I may have 4 months potentially to do a lot of stuff, so that's kind of good in that sense. Hopefully things will go well. been watching videos and doing some other stuff in there too, and of course doing these videos and getting them edited and getting them put out so that, you know, there's something there. I've got a lot of videos right now that are just sitting waiting for me to get a chance to edit them, just to put them out. I've got one right now that I'm getting ready to publish. I just have to go through it a little bit and clean it up some. Actually, there's 3 of them that's going to splice together to make one. There's a lot of stuff in it where I'm doing sanding and stuff like that. There's noisy that's not really necessary to see the whole thing. Got to break that up some. But yeah, that's where I'm at with necks. And my block for my my guitar, my block for my, I'll call it my AC/DC guitar, or not AC/DC, sorry, it'll be my Nazareth guitar. So that's the block for the Nazareth guitar sitting over there. In fact, I'm going to label that right now, not that I have several blocks laying around or anything, but just for the fun of it. I'm going to mark on that so we know it's the Nazareth guitar. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced or how it's spelled, but that's what we put on there, Nazareth. And it's going to come up with the, I probably shouldn't draw on it yet because of the fact that I'll mess myself up here. It's going to have the zebras on it. The big Bixby style tremolo on it. Goes down over the end here and hooks on or something. I'm not sure exactly. But anyway, now I can't read the name. But that doesn't matter. Tripping and falling on stuff here now. Got to get cleaned up in here a little more yet. Like I said, I did some cleanup in the basement. Third level down. One more level below it. I did some cleanup down there. I did some cleanup both sections actually, like I said, but got to go more cleanup in both places. But that's pretty much it for now, guys. We'll leave it at that, and until next time, peace out.